This is News from the Water, and I am Peter Underwood. Whistleblowers, welcome, probably. Now, it may or may not have been triggered by the Canal and River Trust insider who brought us news of senior management's fiddling of the official records by amending its annual report after it was approved by the board, and that's something now being investigated by the charity commissioners. But the Trust has now announced a whistleblowers policy. The document asserts that CRT doesn't tolerate fraud, bribery, corruption, any form of abuse or other harmful behaviour, and it's committed to promoting a culture of openness. It insists it wants to encourage whistleblowers to report suspected wrongdoing and reassures them that they should be able to raise genuine concerns without fear of reprisals. And that includes serious breaches, such as conduct that may damage CRT's reputation or financial well-being. Now, the report encourages potential whistleblowers to raise concerns through a bought-in contractor, calling itself See, Hear, Speak Up. Those contractors will then email the report to the Trust's own whistleblowing panel, consisting of the charity's top lawyer, Tom Deards, Chief Executive, Richard Parry, and the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, Nigel Annett. It's an interesting thought that two of these three were implicated in the recent allegations of amending the annual report, which are currently being investigated by the charity commissioners. There's even a flow chart that sets out the procedure from initial receipt of the whistleblowing concern to the point of investigation. Although apparently contacting outside bodies is not what the Trust wants. Although it does admit the law recognises that in some limited circumstances it may be appropriate for a report to be made to an external body such as the Charity Commission. Tom Deards, the author of this whistleblowing report, goes on to say,
"It will very rarely, if ever, be appropriate to alert the media. We strongly encourage whistleblowers to seek advice before reporting a concern to anyone external."
CRT doesn't encourage whistleblowers to make disclosures anonymously either, claiming proper investigation may be more difficult or impossible if it can't get further information from the whistleblowers. The CRT claims it will support whistleblowers and won't fire them, threaten them, or blight their careers. When there's a serious incident, it's Tom Deards, the whistleblowing officer, and Chief Law Officer of course, who will consider whether the concern and or the outcome of an investigation should be reported to the Charity Commission. So remember, if you find CRT covering up another cock-up or changing more official documents, the Trust really doesn't think the wider waterways community should know about that through media outlets like News from the Water, so please never ever tell us. Why are there so many mistakes? Now, in just 30 days we've seen CRT remove 2 whole paragraphs from its terms and conditions that were added by mistake, and the personal details of more than 30 boaters have been exposed in a data breach by mistake. And of course the potential for confusion in stoppage notices grows daily as different regions use different ways of setting them out. Why? Well, a boater called Stuart Tyler undertook a long look at the Trust's documents back in 2019, and he sent the results to the Canal and River Trust. He read every document that CRT used, and he looked at the operation of its business and was considerably concerned at the complete lack of any documentation control and the lack of any standards for the production of the documents that are issued by the Trust. Stuart found that there appears to be no definitive list of trust policies approved by the board, and none are stated in the government's document. Now, as those policies are what are used to write the procedures in each of the regions, he argues that they should be clearly stated and easy to find. He found there were a considerable number of documents which don't have any dates on them at all. Many are duplicated and not referenced anywhere else. Stewart also reported back to the Trust that its computer system for providing information to staff and the public simply isn't user-friendly. He says the terminology used is obscure for all of the essential information, and the lack of keywords and the use of them severely hampers it as a successful tool. Now, because all legally binding documents the Trust uses should have dates, issues, indexes and a record of the changes made to them, but they very often don't, and perhaps that explains a lot. And Stewart says the financial savings in implementing proper documentation and control procedures could be substantial and far-reaching. Flapping like a phoenix. Now some great news from Cambrian Wharf in the heart of Birmingham, where the iconic pub and music venue The Flapper, once set to be ripped down and replaced by yet another boring block of canal-side flats, is now to reopen its doors in July. It's been saved from demolition thanks to a tidal wave of public support and Birmingham City Council's planning committee doing the right thing. The pub, which has lived side by side with moored boats in Cambrian Wharf for many decades, is a favourite boozer of many boaters and has a citywide reputation for live music and events. The Flapper closed in January 2020, seemingly for good, but now the doors will reopen on Wednesday the 21st of July, and the pub will be not only family run but safe from the developers, as it's now been bought by Samantha Campbell-White and her family. Now, she acknowledges that very few people thought the pub could be restored to life, and says the resurrection of the Flapper is important for independent bars and grassroots music venues, as it shows that not all sites earmarked for demolition actually go ahead and get pulled down. Now, since the Flapper was saved from demolition, Samantha and her family have been in talks with the landlord about the future, and finally a sale was agreed. Samantha says she could never really let go of the Flapper, and she's been there for some years. And now she's back and the business is family run still, with the added bonus of husband Noel joining the team. The Flapper has undergone extensive building renovations, most notably to the roof to keep her in good condition for years to come, as well as an interior refresh. Customers can expect fresh paintwork with a brand new colour scheme, updated bars and wooden floors and new lighting. The large canal-side beer garden's been refreshed too, with new tables, more plants and extra lighting. And you'll still find the famous Grade 2 listed crane by the water, and a vast balcony overlooking the Cambrian Wharf basin. Despite the new look, it remains the same rock and roll venue that people know and love, and there are big plans for the kitchen and the gig venue downstairs. Sam is hoping live events in the gig room will return by October, including local talent as well as more established acts. Moorings, more or less. Half a dozen boaters have contacted News from the Water from various parts of the system in recent weeks, suggesting that CRT's waterside moorings arm appeared to be failing to let moorings in certain areas, or even closing them altogether. Now that's a claim I've heard periodically over the years, especially when mooring sites seem to be deliberately left to decline. But CRT insists strenuously that it's not clearing moorings or slowing down or deliberately abandoning attempts to re-let moorings. It says waterside moorings is a major contributor to the Trust's income, and the only time it will close a mooring is if it's unsafe or needs repair that's not economically viable. which doesn't mean, of course, that they won't close them ever. It does agree that there are a few sites where it's not advertising vacancies due to a number of temporary reasons, mainly because they're awaiting repairs or redevelopment or the renewal of a lease with a third-party landowner. It says that in 2017 there were 3,644 berths and in 2021 3,619, a drop of 25, but that reflects the fact that it hasn't renewed a lease for Bridgewater Docks, which meant a loss of 32 berths. And various other sites were leased to third parties. CRT also claims to have opened 30 new berths in the London area and says it actively moves berths from areas of low or no demand to areas of higher demand, where space and local conditions permit. If you feel differently, let us know. Boaters and traders lose patience with CALOR. We're running out of gas, it seems. Across the system, dealers and fuel boats are having to tell customers that they may not be able to continue cooking with gas. CALOR gas is the main fuel used on most boats for cooking, and traders like Brian McGuigan of Four Counties Fuels, which operates a number of coal boats, says he's currently receiving less than 20% of his usual supply, as are all stockists in his region. Yet, when customers complain directly to the managing director of CALOR, Matthew Hicken, CALOR doesn't even acknowledge that they have a problem, give no explanation, and say they'll contact the local distribution centre. That's the same distribution centre that Brian says is telling him they're simply not receiving supplies day after day, week after week, month after month. Brian says that it just gets crazier and crazier, with CALOR now not even acknowledging they have a massive supply problem. Yet the vast majority of official CALOR stockists have little or no gas to sell. He says he's phoning CALOR every day, but no one has any answers as to when the situation will be resolved and what their plan is to resolve it. The problem, it appears, is not shortage of gas but shortage of cylinders, with CALOR claiming the pandemic resulted in record demand in 2020 due to the lockdown, warm weather and staycations, of course. And it says orders for new cylinders were placed well in advance, but the lead times for cylinders, which are of course manufactured overseas, have been significantly longer due to COVID, increased global steel demand and increased global shipping demand. If it isn't working, move the goalposts. Now, the intention back in the day was to have 100,000 friends donating £10 million a year within 10 years. When Canal and River Trust announced its Friends programme as a way of raising additional funds from the public. Now, the decade has come and gone, and the latest figures we have are from the 1920 annual report, and that shows just over 30,000 friends against a target of 35,000, bringing in just £3 million a year. And it also shows the cost of raising that money using an external agency at around, yeah, you guessed it, £3 million a year. The number, by the way, of friends has since fallen to 28,000. Now it seems CRT has realised it just isn't working and has moved the goalposts. It's now bringing its face-to-face fundraising programme in-house, with an initial 24 roles advertised on their website over the next few months. The Trust says it's changing the way it operates following an in-depth review, and is now aimed at creating a positive impact on communities. James Munoz, CRT Face-to-Face Development Manager, says,
Towpath fundraising is about raising much-needed funds to continue our work, but also about introducing communities to the waterways, encouraging people to explore the network and all it has to offer. Our friends and regular givers make an important contribution to the work of the Trust in protecting the benefits that our network of waterways provide.
As one seasoned observer of CRT said, With friends, it looks like CRT have accepted failure and are busy moving the goalposts. Be part of Coventry's City of Culture. Canals and the people who live and work on them are getting a look in on Coventry's City of Culture, which is being celebrated this year. Lucy C. Hayward is supported by Coventry City of Culture Trust in creating a new piece of children's theatre, created and performed by a disabled-led production team with embedded access for blind and visually impaired children and deaf and hard of hearing children. It will explore the lives of people living and working on canal boats around Coventry, and Lucy is collecting interviews from those who have lived or worked on Coventry's canals. I spoke to her on a Zoom call to ask what she wanted from Coventry's canal community.
I've done research, but my research is all from text. I've had one chat with somebody who used to work on the on British waterways, but I don't have any kind of actual personal experiences. In order for my artists to develop their stories, it would be really good if I could arrange either a recording or maybe a chat with people who actually have that personal experience, because it's all about authenticity. I don't want to be creating a story simply from text that might have been adapted to suit the writer's prerogative. Yeah. I'd like to actually gain that authentic experience. We've got one of my artists is looking at life living on a canal boat, and that would be lovely to really find out how it is, what it's like, and to just gain that. I'm really keen to speak to anyone who'd like to share their stories, because one of the things that I do is I try and encourage people to be confident about the stories they have. Everybody has exciting and interesting stories to tell, and I think that's really important to be able to take from those stories and retell them in a way that suits.
Yeah, but you want it specific to Coventry and Coventry's canals.
This performance will be built around the Coventry Canal basin and the canal network running from Coventry, yes. But if people further afield would like to speak with me, I am looking at doing further productions in the future.
Okay, now how do they go about contacting you? What's the best way?
The best way is to email me at Lucy, Lucy, at Lucy C. Hayward, hayward.co.uk. And then we can either communicate via email, or I can gain a contact number and we can have a chat.
Yeah, okay. And when is this going to happen? When will we see the final results?
The first performance, we're going to be doing research and development, really getting the show up on its feet over the next few months, and we'll be doing a little showcase and a discussion about the work in October. But the first performance will be at Coventry City of Culture in spring 2022.
Right. Okay. And do you have a venue yet, or is that too far in the future?
It's going to be on the banks of the canal.
Oh, so probably in the basin there somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for this week. See you soon.
We need video and photos of all aspects of the waterways. Email files to peterunderwood2@gmail.com with your name and a brief description of it and where and when it was shot.